Sudija naredio da se ljudi koji optužuju Didija Holmesa imenuju. Da li će ovo zaustaviti prave žrtve da se od sada javljaju? Sad ćemo da vidimo u ovom videoklipu. Inače, pomerio sam se ovamo gore desno, pošto ih ima 3, sada ukupno nas ima 4. Tako da, ajde da vidimo šta kaže.
A judge has just ruled that one of Didi's accusers must name themselves or the entire lawsuit will be dismissed. I got 2 lawyers on to break this down.
Opa, idemo. Nemoj da me uplašiš sa špicom, molim.
Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Sagnor. I'm so excited for, I guess, our first lawyer fight. Look at this. 2 of my favorites here with me. Rais, welcome back, our beard lawyer, and John Witherspoon. So lovely to have you both. Rais, we'll start with you. Welcome. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
I love it. I have this like Pierce Morgan's dual screen happening with my experts. Now I love it. We're getting there. John, also glad to have you back. How are you, my man?
Good. It's a good day. Happy Halloween.
Ovaj levo advokat bi bio idealan za našeg sveštenika nekog.
But this was kind of an interesting one for me because I'm really torn on what we do here, and I suspect many in our audience is going to be upset about this too. But let's just break down really quick for you. Let me do just so you understand what's happening. Basically, Tony Buzby's put out about 120 pending lawsuits. All of these cases have been anonymous. Well, the first one that filed has now been instructed, you must now name yourself. You cannot remain anonymous, no matter how,
Čekaj, je li od sada ko se prijavi ili moraju da se imenuju i ovi do sada? To me zanima.
Sensitive this may be. It doesn't matter. You have now sued a celebrity. You're suing big companies. This has become of public interest.
Pa ima smisla, brate. Ima smisla. Mislim, ja razumem da neko ne želi da bude istaknut, njegovo ime da bude istaknuto u ovom slučaju, kao žrtva. Verujem da dosta ljudi ne bi voljelo tako nešto. Ali, brate, ovo su velike optužbe, znaš. Ne može baš tako sve anonimno. Znači, što on kaže, stvarno, ovo je javna ličnost. Velike firme su u pitanju. Mislim, nema baš previše smisla da ostanete anonimni svi.
It's now imperative that you do have to release your name or the case will be dismissed. Obviously, this is interesting and tough for some because victims' rights are supposed to be able to protect the victim because they could be threatened by Diddy.
Jeste, ali među žrtvama ima i oni koji hoće samo pare, znaš. Tako da ukoliko se imenuju, ne znam baš. Siguran sam da će ceo internet odmah da se baci na istraživanje tih ljudi i da se zaključi da li je nešto istina ili je fake. Tako da...
Their lives could be in danger. There's a lot of stuff that could happen by being named. At the same time, fellas, like, I'm a little shocked because literally it seems like Busby's whole plan is just to drown Diddy in anonymous lawsuits. He's already in prison. I don't want to help the guy, but I also don't see how anyone could defend themselves in prison against 120 anonymous lawsuits. It did seem like it was starting to get really hard for him to even fairly try to fight himself. I'm not a fan of Diddy. I don't want to defend him based on things we've said, but guys, due process is important, and I'm curious where you each stand. Reese, I'm going to go to you. Are you surprised by this judge's verdict, and do you think this could affect the other 120 lawsuits that are pending by Busby?
I'm a little surprised, and I do a lot of privacy litigation. So my concern is the chilling effect on future cases, right? And victims coming forward. I mean, look, these are some really nasty allegations. This is not, I was just hit once, right? And we know that Diddy is not exactly telling the truth. He vehemently denied on camera, made a public statement about Cassie, which completely, was upside down when the video came out. And my problem is, look, there are other protocols like sealing records, like redaction, that can even be fought, right? Those decisions can be fought by each side in front of the trial court judge, and she can make rulings on whether there's merits to a name being redacted or documents being sealed. I don't think she has to publicly declare herself for that to happen. There are ways and protocols to keep things out of the public record, but allow the defendant to defend himself. So I just don't agree with it.
That's my question, I guess, because I'm like I feel like his team should at least have a right to know who his accuser is. The public doesn't necessarily have to know that. Is there a way legally for yes, they know, which could still be a risk given what we've heard the accusations against Diddy, but is that something they could do?
That is something that can be done. Now, New York has a history and a very strong precedence for public disclosure and constitutional rights for the public to know what's happening in their courts. So in that sense, I'm not surprised that in a New York court, this is happening. But I still think there are protocols to allow Diddy to know exactly who we're dealing with, but for the public to not, just to avoid the chilling effect on this victim.
John, I want to go to you next. Do you agree? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree very much, Andy. As we were talking about just a moment ago, the public policy aspect of this looms very large, and by that I mean what you just heard, that we want to have a system in place that affords justice and due process of law, but at the same time does not re-victimize somebody who has alleged that they've already suffered at the hands of another individual.
To jeste nezgodno, to je poprilično nezgodno, stvarno onda ponovo sve preživljava i ne samo to je manja stvar, nego internet je velika stvar. Internet će se usredsrediti na te ljude, imaju da iskopaju sve živo o njima, to zaista niko ne želi. A ima raznih ljudi na internetu, ima svašta da govore, ima da optužuju i da laže i svega ima. To je problematično, ali ukoliko želimo fair suđenje da bude, jel? Mislim, svaki krivac zaslužuje fair suđenje, bez obzira koliki monstrum bio, onda bi možda trebali da ozvaniče ta imena. Ali opet, ukoliko Didi zna ta imena, ali javnosti samo nisu dostupna ta imena, onda opet je to neka druga priča. Nisam onda baš siguran da bi to trebalo da se ozvaniči. U tom slučaju nisam siguran onda.
Part of the argument is, hey, you got all these people, 120 people who file lawsuits against me. How in the world am I supposed to know which one this is? And, the response kind of would be, well...
Tako ima i toga, kako da zna on.
Whose fault is that you have 120 lawsuits pending against you? Apparently, this was something that you caused. We should not make the external consequences of your behavior accrue in a negative way to somebody that you allegedly have already victimized. So I agree. And as we were talking about a moment ago as well, there are procedures in place, there are rules of evidence, there are opportunities to confront people, in depositions and in other types of proceedings. There's also the big angle in this case of some of Diddy's past behavior. And we've heard over and over and over again about these allegations that there's witness intimidation and all this type of thing. And it seems to me that given the fact that he's incarcerated in part because of the threat of witness tampering and that type of thing, that would loom a little bit larger here, that if you release the name of this alleged victim, then all of a sudden Diddy can get word out, and I'm sure it's entirely possible for him to put the word out that, hey, somebody needs to drop the dime on...
Da, više nisam razmišljao o tome, on sigurno čak i iz zatvora ima veliku moć, tako da može da pokrene ljude, poput mafije neki, pokrene ljude lepo iz zatvora da reše ta imena koje su ozvaničena. Nisam razmišljao o tome, tako da to je još jedan minus za žrtve da se imenuju.
This person over here who's making these allegations and get them to pipe down a little bit and not be so vocal and again, the interest of the witnesses versus and the people who've allegedly been abused needs to be weighed against Diddy's right to a fair trial and right to defend himself and his right to confront his accusers.
Yeah, I mean, my comment, and come back to you, Race, it's just like, I agree. At the same time, like, I'm trying to be more careful, right? Not be so biased against Diddy, because Diddy has a right to defend himself. I know many of us don't like him. We don't believe it. All of that is true. However, I don't want this, like, he's already in jail, which has already made this tough, which is a rarity for these types of cases to begin with. And what if these people aren't telling the truth? I find it hard to believe all 120 people are being fully honest about the accounts, right? He has a right. And so how do you really navigate this? You make a good point. Well, then you shouldn't have done this to 120 people. But what if he didn't, right? What if he didn't and some of these people are piling on, Race? He does have a right here to sort of get more of that intel, but I guess your point is still doesn't need to be public knowledge for us. That could be sort of the midline. I mean, what are your reactions to how does Diddy get the fair trial that he's claiming he's not getting?
Look, in cases, again, that I've litigated, like trade secrets cases, that stuff is not spilled into the public realm, right? So the opposing party has an opportunity to defend themselves, to hear what the allegations are without it going into the public light. That's really what we're talking about. So it's not, there's not a polarity here between a 0 and 1. There's a sliding scale. And that's what this balance of justice language that you see and you'll hear in some of the news coverage on this is about, is balance what interests there are. We're not saying that you don't know at all or you shouldn't know. I do think that Diddy should know who it is. I just don't think the public should know, and I don't think it should spill out into the streets. If Diddy knows, I still have the concern about intimidation and witness tampering and all that, knowing who he is, right? He's a very resource-intensive guy. Nobody can dispute that. But does everyone need to know, including her coworkers, her friends? I mean, it's happened 20 years ago. She's trying to get some closure, but she's also a victim. And we just don't know enough yet for me to be comfortable to say, yeah, just throw her name out in the public. I think there are mechanisms to allow him to a fair trial and fair discovery.
Yeah, what are your thoughts, John? I mean, is he getting a fair trial in your opinion?
I think he will eventually, and again, for the reasons that Reese just articulated so clearly. There's an opportunity to get it right. It does not have to be binary. Total anonymity versus total disclosure of the person and making them a public figure all of a sudden because they've tried to get some sort of justice. There is a way to sort of slice the situation in half and find a middle ground. Absolutely.
The reasons here in the filing from the judge, Mary Kay, we'll call her, in Manhattan, the balance of interest at stake weighs strongly against the plaintiff's known Jane Doe from continuing to use a pseudonym. This could affect other lawsuits, clearly. And New York Post also says that the woman who listed herself as Jane Doe in the lawsuit must identify herself according to these legal documents. In her official opinion, Doe has an interest in keeping her identity private, given the sensitive nature of her allegations, potential scrutiny in personal life. The judge agreed to this, but ultimately deemed this is what it says officially. She argued Doe has decided as an adult to file a lawsuit in which she accuses a famous person of engaging in heinous conduct approximately 20 years ago, and further accuses a number of businesses in complicity in the alleged conduct. Therefore, she believes Doe has not carried her burden to show that she is entitled to anonymity. So what do you think? She's an adult. It was a long time ago. This is a civil case. It's for money against the law.
U početku ja sam bio zino, brate, da bi trebalo da se ozvaniči, ali sad naspram njihovih argumenata nekih nisam baš siguran. Pošto su izneli dobre argumente da se ne ozvaniče imena žrtava. Ne znam.
A lot of businesses. I go back to each of you as your sort of final thoughts. Do you think this ruling is wrong? Race, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I still think that, the court should permit some sort of sliding scale to privacy to protect her and to not discourage other people from coming forward, right? Look, if even, a party can't have some level of privacy, what does it say about third-party witnesses that might want to come forward with evidence? I think there needs to be some sort of protection from her name spilling out into the public while giving Diddy a chance to defend himself, get the discovery he needs, and to move on to a fair trial.
John, it seems like you agree. Do you think this will affect the other lawsuits that Busby has now that he's being told you have to name these accusers?
Well, it's going to depend on what judge they get, and I think the particulars of each case. I'll just note that the judge pointed to the fact that Diddy's high profile. Well, again, I go back to saying that's not the witness's fault. Why should the witness have to suffer in some way and basically become a celebrity by virtue of the fact that the person who allegedly attacked her is a celebrity? That seems like it's not a fair way to proceed. And I agree. There is a sliding scale. There is a middle ground that can be found here.
A siguran sam da mogu da iskombinuju nešto, da to ne bude baš tako zvanično. Mislim, generalno ovaj slučaj nije da ćemo moći da gledamo suđenje kao što smo gledali suđenje oko Johnny'a Deppa i Amber Heard ili slično nešto. Mislim, zvuči poprilično nezgodno ovaj potez. Nemam pojma.
And we'll just have to wait and see what happens going forward. It might or it might not affect the other cases, depending on who the judge is in each individual situation.
I imagine if he gets that judge again, he's going to know, well, you might have to name yourself as they go. But do you guys think they're going to are going to see this as, oh man, now we can actually, Diddy's going to fight back on all of these cases to sort of make these people come forward? And I imagine that's going to go against him too, because it's very easy for Busby and the victims to be like, how dare you try to re-traumatize us again, right?
My fear in this, could you imagine, Andy, there's going to be paparazzi all over this victim's house.
Pa to sam htio da kažem. Paparaci, brate, internet generalno. Vi niste svesni koliko je internet sada jak u istraživanju osoba. Ne znam da li volite da gledate one video zapise kao Karen, one što se bune stalno nešto, pa ih snimaju i onda to objave na nekoj od platformi, da li TikTok, da li YouTube, da li Instagram i šta god već. I onda ljudi reaguju na to i ima veoma strastvenih ljudi koji ih pronalaze momentalno, takve osobe koje su zgrešile i unište ih, brate mili, do te mere da kompanija koja ih je zaposlila recimo ih otpušta, da zaglavljaju u zatvoru, da im unište život kompletno, karijere, svašta nešto. Tako da nije uopšte to za zezati se. Ukoliko otkriju imena žrtava, to bi moglo da bude jako, jako nezgodno za žrtve. S jedne strane. S druge strane, koliko je to onda fair suđenje da ostanu anonimni, nemam pojma.
His work, there's going to be people chasing them down, private investigators following them every footsteps, Instagram, social media blasts. I mean, it's going to be a nightmare. This is a person that's making serious sexual assault
noćna mora je pravo reč.
Allegations, the mental anguish. They probably went through years of therapy. Right?
A zamisli, siguran sam da postoje Didijevi fanovi i dalje, brate, neki totalno otkačeni ljudi koji bi napadali žrtve zbog njihovih optužbi. To je 100%.
Right, to put their family back together. And now they're going to relive this. That's an important...
Ili to, da, verovatno članovi njene porodice ili njegove nisu upoznati sa tako nečim i kad bi čuli tako nešto promenilo bi jako puno u odnosu, možda bi rasturilo brak neki ili ko zna zajednicu jednu, nemam pojma, sve moguće, tako da ova ideja mi sad zvuči sve opasnije i opasnije. Drago mi je što su mi promenili mišljenje od samog početka. Prebrzo sam se izletao, pogrešio sam.
Interest in the justice and the fair balance of this case. I can't imagine having to relive this in the public realm, even though what you want is recourse, civil or otherwise. I don't think the fact that you're doing this for money and closure means that your name has to be everywhere.
John, giving you the final word.
Yeah, I would just say, again, it's a very difficult situation. It's a very unusual situation because of the number of plaintiffs, the number of potential plaintiffs that are likely still out there. Some of which probably have not even picked up the phone yet, others of which have been talking to...
Mislim, javlja svaki dan, brate mili, malte ne čujemo za neki novi slučaj, ko zna koliko ih ima da zovu. Naravno, ko zna koliko je pravi žrtava u svim tim pozivima.
Law firm and the cases have not been filed. I'll just say as well, this is why we have judges to decide these things. There's some of these things that you cannot simply decide with a bunch of rules that say, if X, Y, and Z, then ABC.
Pa dobro, zato sudije služe, da. Jer u suprotnom može veštačka inteligencija na osnovu zakona da sudi, je li tako? Ja mislim da je sudija u takvoj situaciji kao slajder koji bi trebao da donese ispravnu odluku za obe strane.
In the middle of the process, they don't always get it right. I'm not sure in this case that they have gotten it right, but time will just tell. We'll just have to wait and see. It's part of the it's a perfect example of the type of thing that makes the law very interesting.
Yeah, interesting. I wanted to fight, but we got more of an agreement, and that's fine. That only reaffirms the belief. Because I want this to be a fair trial, so there's no excuse later. That's really the only reason I'm trying to...
Ja isto mislim kao i Andy u suštini. Razumem zašto bi možda trebalo da budu imena ozvaničena, zato sam na početku to i rekao, ali sada posle ovih argumenta, ovih advokata, više nisam siguran.
Play this devil's advocate, and to know that, yeah, Diddy and his team can know who these accusers are, which is still risky, I get it, but at least then he can know, okay, this is, whatever. That to me seems to be the option. I don't see why they need to be public. So this is an interesting...
Da, eto, ako postoji opcija da Didi samo zna, da javnost ne zna, onda je to super, onda je to najbolje. To je onda po meni pravo rešenje. To sam i mislio kad sam se na početku stvari izjasnio. Da li treba imena da budu anonimne ili ne. Isključivo pričam zbog fair suđenja, iako me baš briga za Didija Holmesa, ali svako zaslužuje fair suđenje. Inače, čemu?
Development that could affect the case, guys. We will see how this proceeds, but currently this first accuser now has until mid-November to refile with their name or the case is dismissed.
U suštini ja sam sve rekao usput, onako moje mišljenje, ne znam šta bi još dodao. Zanima me iskreno šta vi mislite o svemu ovo, pošto je delikatna tema. Evo, ja sam od početka videa već promenio mišljenje, mada, kažem opet, mislio sam to zbog fair suđenja. Naravno da žrtve ne treba da prolaze ponovo kroz neku vrstu napada, pogotovo ne internet napada, to je stvarno noćna mora. mora i definitivno ovo dvojice su me ubedili da nije nikako pametno da se ozvaniče ta imena, ali šta vi mislite? Napišite mi u komentaru dole, volio bi da znam, da učvrstim ovo svoje mišljenje ukoliko se vi slažete sa ovom dvojicom advokata. Dakle, žrtve anonimne ili ne? To mi napišite. Takođe, zveknite like ukoliko vam se sviđa ove reakcije, treba nam svaka vaša podrška. Kliknite na subscribe ukoliko želite u budućnosti da gledate ovakav sadržaj ili sličan. Imamo raznih stvari sada na kanalu, sve osim srpske politike, na to zaboravite. U tom segmentu više nemamo šta da raspravljamo, sve je jasno i ništa više nije smešno. Zveknite notifikaciono zvonce da vas obaveštava čim izađe moj novi video, da budete u toku sa ovim informacijama i sa ostalim mojim video zapisima. Podelite ovaj video nekom ko voli da gleda ovakve stvari, a mi se vidimo do sledeće reakcije na nešto, ne znam šta će prvo da padne pod ruku, ali vidimo se, ćao!